Okay, so we are going to proceed now to export out our model. And although the next step that we are going to work on, you could do this in Maya by adding more information to this object, to this creature. We're gonna try it and start adding a detail and information in mudbox, just to show a little bit of the opportunity that you have of sculpting this object or this creature better in mudbox to push it to a better amount of detail. So while I'm here in Maya, if you have Maya 2019 and you have Modbox 2019 installed on your computer, on the computer you're working with, you can say File, and then you can say Send to Modbox, and you can say right away Send as a new scene. And what that does is that connects both files, the Maya file and the Modbox file, and you see that at the bottom of the corner appears is connected to Mudbox, so it allows the program to have a back and forth to update your work. Here I have a warning because I haven't created any UV sets to my model, so Mudbox is not really interested in working with it without the UVs. I could do UVs in Mudbox, but I'm gonna cancel that actually, and I'm gonna go back to Maya, and I'm gonna just UV this guy just by creating a standard UV, just a aromatic UV, so that we get something UV in it. So I can see the UV editor. That's what it did, and that makes it a little bit better for Unity for Mudbox to work with. So I'm going to say now again, save my file first. I'm gonna go and say send to Mudbox as a new scene, and then say scene was modified. Of course, it was thinking that the scene before was modified, so I say don't save because the previous one I don't want it to save. And then eventually appears there. If it doesn't happen, you can click on one of these buttons here to see the UVs, and then go back to the 3D view, and that way you can see your model right there. So right now I'm looking to perspective 1, so I'm going to actually go back to perspective. When I say right click on it and look to perspective, that is under my object list. So here a quick presentation about Mudbox. If you've never used it before, you find here on of course your screen is your work area. On the right side you find a layers folder, a layered window, an object list, and then a viewport filters that are just ways of rendering it out. The most important ones are the object list and the layers. In your list you see you have the cameras. Each camera comes with their own little toggle to see the image playing behind that. And we also have a light and a default material, the material that came from Maya, which my file had a number, and you have the object that came from Maya. You see that when I open that object, it shows me a level 0, which is the amount of information that comes with my file. On the bottom left, we have sculpting tools. We have paint tools for texturing, which we're going to touch later. Curve tools for creating curves for you to work on. Pose tools to pose your animation, and selection tools to be able to manipulate your object. So at this moment, to rotate, you use exactly the same commands or the same hotkeys as you do in Maya. At the moment, my object is pretty low res, so there is no a lot of information for me to work with. So I'm going to need to increase the amount of information that my object has. Again, as I said before, the level that I am at is level 0. Mudbox works with layers and with levels. Layers in which you can add information, and that information get assigned or connected to levels. So levels is the amount of detail that you have on each the layer. So let's say, for example, I'm going to go to my layers folder. Right now I have my object by default. There are no layers in this scene. So I'm going to try creating a new layer just by clicking on this thing here, and that's on a sculpt layer. And you see the layers have a sculpting and painting. We won't deal with painting today. Sculpt layer, and this is my first sculpting layer. So I have a basic model, and I have a sculpt layer. I'm going to go back to my object list, and I see that I am still at level 0, and I have 3 possibilities there for me to work with. But I'm not going to deal with that at this point because it's still too low res. So I have a new layer, but I'm still at level 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say mesh, and I'm going to add a new subdivision level that will give more information to my object. And you'll see that once I do that, a new level gets added, and I get to see the new level here. And my object becomes a bit more, with more resolution. Not a lot, a bit more. At this point, I could start sculpting my creature a bit more with more detail. But I'm going to, of course, I need a reference to work with that, because I'm not going to make up my sculpture without knowing what I'm going after. So I'm going to go to start with my front view, on my front camera. I'm going to just right click, look through that camera, that way I can see my object closely. And I'm going to the front view, of course, and I'm going to go and create under the image plane. When I click on it, of course it's off, so I'm going to turn it on, and I'm going to import my front view of my creature. I can change the visibility of this, that way I can manipulate it. I can push the depth if I want it to be behind my object or in front of my object. So I'm going to keep it in front of my object, but now I'm going to kind of move my camera to fit my sculpture size, roughly. I could, if I needed, let's say my image comes too big or too small, I can change the scale of it. That's why it's important to keep it square, because that way I can just very easily change it, let's say times 2 or 0.5, whichever the scale I want it to be, and it'll be a lot easier for me to manipulate that and not having to calculate uneven numbers that I don't know. Okay, and in my case, I don't have to do anything with it. It looks good. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to the front camera, and I'm going to click on the locking column just to lock it. That way I cannot go and move it by accident. I'm going to do the same thing on my side view. I'm going to right click, look through that camera, open it up, add the image plane for that camera. So I'm going to go and say this guy, open it, bring down the visibility of it. That way I can look through and have a better chance to manipulate my object. Okay, and that seems a bit better there. I just try to bring this one a bit more, that way I can have that, and then I'm going to do the same thing, lock my camera. So I have my camera, my side, I still have, of course I can look at my perspective at any time in order to see what I'm doing. Okay, so let's start by looking through the front, and I gotta make sure that I'm going to be working on my object the level that I want it to be, not level 0 but level 1. It's going to show up in yellow. That means that's my active level, and of course we are working under the new layer, not under the original layer. That way we have a little more information there. So level 1 is my level, and I'm going to start using my sculpting tools. In my sculpting tools I have sculpt, which is a way for you to push or pull or make geometry come out. A smoothing one, one relaxing for the geometry, other one for grab and move, other one for pinch, one for flattening, one for foam, which is kind of like a bulging out, and spraying and repeating and printing, stamping and waxing and so on and so forth. There is another one here which is interesting, which is bulging and amplifying. So I'm going to start just right now by using grab, and that gives me this little thing here, and if I hold my B key, just like in Maya, I can grow and grab and change my brush to try to grab my object just to match the best I can the shape I want. Notice that because since I am doing it in this very low res, maybe grab it from that bottom part there. So that's not happening completely because I'm seeing the front and the back at the same time. I'm gonna push these guys here, just the best I can. You know, it's not that precise. There and there. Although I'm not going to be paying attention too much to this side because I'm gonna end up mirroring that in Maya. I could mirror it here, but too much trouble for what I need. I'm gonna give these guys a bit more of space there, and grab this guy down here, push this one that way, kind of roughen it out so that I have a good, reference of the silhouette that I'm going after. Let me try to see if I can grab that one a bit more. That's a little bit better. Okay, so that might not look perfect, but that is a good thing. All right, let me go to my side view now. Make sure that I'm still working on level 1, and I'm gonna now do the same process on those. So I'm gonna bring that eyelid up. Let's see if I can grab it from that corner there. I'm trying to grab from the middle because I don't want it to be grabbing just one vertex and not all. So I'm gonna try to bring this guy on here. And I'm not really worrying about topology. That's the beauty of this technique. That topology, something that I will worry in Maya, not here. Okay. So if I want to look at my tool again, I can change some of the attributes of my tool, like the size or the strength. I want to turn on the mirror, actually what I'm not using. So I probably should use the mirror now and see that I'm not doing it across X, so that will probably guarantee that it's going to be mirror on the other side too. I wasn't using it, but I guess it's better to use it. So here it's happening that way. I have for certainty that it's happening on both legs. Although again, I will be just mirroring the one side when I'm back in Maya. So, but this gives me a very cool beginning of my creature. I can give him a little bit more of that there, and not too bad for having a basic first shape. Let's see if I can grab this one better. Okay, so there is a rough beginning there for me to have it. I'm going to look at it in the perspective view. So yeah, the shape is matching, but he looks boxy. Do you see that? So I'm going to, of course, save my file just to have a version of it. I had already one before, so I'm going to just do 001, and then it has to be an MOD format, not an FBX. MOD. You can work. You need to be MOD, MUD. I'm sorry, MUD when you're working with Maya. You could also save it on FBX, but that wouldn't be connected to Maya. So I'm gonna save that. That way, I'm still connected to Maya. Okay, so I have my guy here. I think that I want to get rid of that boxy feel that he has by going, and I noticed that, for example, I have done the eye there and I didn't do the other eye, so I probably just want to be careful with that. I'm actually gonna grab this other one here, turn off the mirror for a moment because I don't want it to be affecting the side, and I'm gonna just grab this one. Is pushing in right now, so I'm gonna actually go and say invert the function for that tool, which the attributes for the tools are here. So I'm going to try to grab it out, try to bring it out to match the other one. I'm just clicking. Actually, I'm working with a mouse. I'm not working with my stylus. So if you have your pen with you and you're working on a tablet, this will be a lot easier. In my case, it's not as easy. I'm just gonna go and grab this one down to try to match the other side. Again, it's not crucial, but I want to be consistent when I'm working on the face part. Alright, so roughly there, but I'm going to just go back and smooth a little bit of these edges. I'm going to hold B to change my tool size. That's the same as just changing this value here. And I'm going to come and try to smooth a little bit of this side here. You see that's kind of changing there. Just carefully, I'm going to do this side too. If you need to reduce the strength because it smooths it too much, you feel free to do it. So I'm going to just try to smooth this one here. Change with B my brush. That way I'm not affecting too much of it. I know that my silhouette should maintain as close as possible. So I may actually have to go back and revise that later again because I'm deforming and changing it, modifying the silhouette of my character. Here, for example, is 2 squares, so I'm going to try to get that down the best I can. And then I'm going to just go and go back to my side and front views and update the shape. Again, I'm just spending time with my right, okay, the character's left side. Let me just soften up a little bit this. It doesn't look too good. Let's see if I can just get it to work better. You know, geometry there is kind of pinching and all that, but no worries, I'll take care of that later. Okay, so this one looks better on this side. Let me go to the front view, look through selected, make sure that I can, if I need to, just grab some of those vertices there and just bring them out so that I still have my silhouette closed. This one actually I'm going to hold B and change it again. This one got modified a lot, so I'm going to try to grab those out there. Okay, that's not bad at all. Good. Okay, so few details that are important here. Of course, I have the eye and I have the hands that will give me details. Of course, if I needed to add more, I would have to add more to it. Remember, I'm working on my cube in level 1. That's the level that I have. So I'm just going to save my file just to make sure that it'll be the way I want it. And I'm going to start by just blocking the eye, trying to get the shape out of it the best I can. And I'm going to see if I go back to the front view, I can see my reference there for that object. Again, I am going to try to build the eye the best I can, and the way I know is that this object is going to have the eye to go up and down somehow. So probably right now the eyelid is kind of halfway, so actually I'm going to kind of model it more like a little bit more open and try to push that, and then later on maybe bring down the eyelid a little bit, see how that works. So let me try doing a little bit of that. So let me start by creating that cut there, or that opening. So for that, I'm going to try to use a technique here to help us manipulate the creature. That might mean to maybe change some scales and doing some things, because I need to bring the eye closer to me in order to see it. So first of all, I'm going to start creating a guide, because I have a guide there, but that might not be enough for me. So I'm going to create actually a curve that is going to help me. I'm going to just do a circle. So that circle is going to help me build my eye based on that. This is not too bad actually. So the curve is not too bad there, and I can try using that one a little bit. I'm going to at the moment I'm going to try to use that curve to push geometry inside. I'm a little far away from it. That's the part that bothers me a little. But I'm gonna try to see if I can do it. But you know what? I think I have too little geometry here for me to have enough information around the eye. So I'm going to go and select my level 1, and I'm gonna say again mesh. I'm gonna say add a new subdivision level. But before I do that, I'm probably create a new layer, so that the new layer is going to be connected to subdivision level 2. Alright, I'm going to go back to that. I'm going to just go back to this guy, and now I'm going to say mesh add subdivision level 2. So you see, if I go back to layers, it doesn't show up yet because I haven't done any sculpting, but it'll show quick a number 2 here, meaning that there is a level number 2, and you see the level number 2 appearing there. So I can now go and work on level number 2, and you see my level number 2 get a much defined amount of geometry. I'm going to have to break my lock here on my camera because it's not going to be easy for me to try to work with this, and I'm going to try to grab my image plane. I'm going to just scale it up a little bit. Let me see, I'm going to try 1.5 in all directions. And I'm going to have to move it down in Y, let's say minus 0.5, see, that's enough. That seems to be okay. And now I'm going to try to get my creature. Actually, I need to match it better. I went too far. I need to match this curve of my drawing with that curve. So maybe I'm going to have to go a little bit higher there. So let me see if I'm going to go minus 0.3. That makes it a little bit better. Minus 2.5. Let's see if that makes a difference. Oh, that's 2 minus 2.5. I'm sorry. That's too little. Let's say 35. Oh, I'm sorry. It has to be a negative number. Minus 25. There it is. I have it a little bit better there, so I can try using I'm aligning the curve with my drawing. Notice that my sculpture is not aligned yet. So when I bring my sculpture again to match roughly that shape. Okay, and then when I'm aligned, I'm going to just lock my camera. That way I don't have problems with it. Okay, so what's going to happen here is that I'm going to, in order to work, I'm going to try to, I'm going to create a mask to be able to push in that thing. So I'm going to select the mask tool here, and if you select the mask tool, let's see if I can show it here on my layers. You see that my mask tool appears under the layer. So, and I can make it visible or invisible. And pretty much when you paint with your mask tool, it's pretty much just reserving the space, so better masking the area that you don't want to be affected. So what I'm going to do there is I'm going to making my mask tool visible. I'm going to try to go back to my object. I'm going to click on my curve, which here is my curve. I'm going to tell my tool to snap to that curve. That way when I paint, I'm going to be painting, you see it's already snapping to it. I'm going to just change my tool in size. I don't need it to be too large. I just need to, and I'm just going to start painting there. Let me make sure that I'm using my rest tool there. This is the size. And let's see if because my geometry is so low, the amount of the amount of information the geometry gives it is very little, so I might have to smooth my geometry some more. See, that is it's too little. I'm gonna press the control key to erase my mask because I don't think it's working. So I'm gonna need to add more information to this. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to my cube. I'm gonna click on my level 2, and I'm going to go my layers, and actually I'm going to make this layer, I'm gonna make it a level 3 layer. So I'm gonna say mesh, add new subdivision layer, and then a third layer level appears there, and I'm still working on that same layer. So in this here, you see my geometry has a lot more information. I'm gonna try to paint that mask now in that layer. So we have that. I know still that my curve's snapping, so I'm gonna try to paint there. Let me just turn on my layers, make sure that my mask is visible. I'm gonna press my B key to change my size of my masking tool. Still trying, not having enough, but it's trying. There's too little information. It wants me to go deeper. Okay, well, that's not going to do it yet, and I don't want to add too much information in it at this point. So I'm gonna go back to this a little bit later to use the mask a bit more later. So I'll use it when I have a little bit more information on my thing. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to simply go back and erase this mask for a moment. Control, because I don't want to add more levels, at least not yet, because I want to keep the basics things. So what I'm going to do here is actually going to push in using this the guide as a or the curve as a guide for me to push. So let me try doing that. So I'm going to say sculpt, and I'm going to use invert, so that instead of pulling out, it's going to push in. I'm going to press my B key. I'm going to change the size of the tool to a small option. I'm going to try sculpting there to see if I can get enough information pushed in. It's little that I can see here, but when I go with my object list and look at the perspective view to see if it's doing something, and yes, it is doing something. Not perfect, but it is doing something. I think that I'm gonna have to push my subdivision levels some more because it's not happening. So I'm gonna just go and push that one more time. Let me just make sure my layers, every time I do this one, you see this one is a level 3. So I'm gonna create a new layer for the next one. I'm gonna go to my object list, and level 3 I'm gonna say mesh, add new subdivision level. Of course, we are all aware this in Maya will become extremely heavy and difficult to handle. Let me just bring down a little bit of the opacity of the image plane because it's too intense and I don't see well my geometry there. Alright, let me see if I can sculpt now here on my level 4, and I'm gonna try to push, and you can see how the line starts appearing a little bit better. I'm pushing in the line there. If I go to the perspective, you see that it has a little better information there. It's not ideal, it's not perfect, but it does a better job. So let me now go to the front view again and look to the selected, and I'm going to unlock my camera one more time, and at this time I'm going to try to move my image plane. Let me lock it there for a moment. I'll move my image plane upwards, say to 0. I'm sorry, that's not it. Actually the opposite. It's going to do the opposite, minus 0.5, because I want to use the curve as the next guide. 0.5 0.7 maybe. That's getting a little bit closer. And I also need my object, I'm sorry, not that. My object to match the best I can. It's too low still. I need to bring it lower. Too high, I'm sorry, too high still. So I'm going to say 0.8. That's a little bit better. And I'm going to actually pull back, let's say 1.2. 1.2 because the curve is not matching my object. So I have to zoom out a little bit more. That curve is not matching there. So what I'm going to actually have to do here is try to modify the scale of my curve to match it better. So actually I'm going to just go back to my camera, I'm sorry, here. To my level 4, hold on 1 second here. In my image plane actually is what I want to go to. And I try to change my scale again to make it a little bigger. I'm going to say 1.8 by 1.8. So make it very, very big. And I'm going to try to move my object to match that. The best I can. Roughly there. And I'm going to lock my camera one more time on my image plane so I don't have by accident move it. And I'm going to grab my curve. I'm going to display the points, display curve points. And now comes one that is not that easy to grasp, and is by holding the C key and your right mouse button. You should be able to scale it down or scale it up to what you need it to go. So yeah, it's not that intuitive. I'm going to go a little bit smaller, but I'm going to have to click there to see if I can use that. I'm going to just go back to display and hide my curve points. Now I'm going to go back to my sculpting tools. I'll try to sculpt there on my cube in level 4. Make sure I have my sculpting tools the same size and everything. I'm going to try to push here. So I'm kind of creating my guide there. It's kind of rough, but it is giving me the chance to do a kind of like a map for me to push in. Alright, let me just for a moment hide the curve, so I don't want the curve to be visible. And I'm going to try to see if I can kind of push the rest of it. I can go and paint this part where I want it to be affected by it. I think I can deal with it without doing it, so I'm going to just sculpt that. But I'm going to try to push this in here with a bit of a bigger brush. But that's kind of giving me a very wrinkly surface. It really doesn't matter much because I'm going to try to bring that back to Maya and retopologize it in Maya. So I think it's a good idea for us to try to work this in a different way. And if I try to continue pushing here, I'm going to get a very wrinkly surface. So I think I can go down to level 1 probably, or level 2, to see if I can push that in a different way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say to mudbox, step level down. So that goes to level 3, and you see my geometry becomes a lot coarser, and I can try to push that into there. I'm going to go to my layers, because right now you see that I cannot work in that layer. I need to work in the layer associated with step level 3. I'm going to try to push, if you're using this tool, inverted function there, push in, being careful not to push the outer layers because the outer part of this, that makes it a bit more inside. I'm gonna just smooth some of that. And I'm gonna push even more there. Again, that opening is going to be taken care of in my the inside of the eye actually. So I'm just trying to get to an area where I have an easier way to work with it. Alright, let me try to go back up to the level, step to level, and then you see that that one still has a bit more there. So I'm gonna try to go to the layer and see if I can soften up some over there. Not really. I'm gonna go back down, step level down again, and try to push a bit more there. So hopefully I'm not going out of my region here. So I'm gonna push here a bit more strongly. I probably have done this model in my a lot faster, but what it gives me the freedom of sculpture. So why not trying it, right? So we got here, that gives me a better opening there. I'm gonna try to pull it up now to my next level. So mesh level up, and that level 3. I'm gonna do the next level 4 actually, level 3 I forget. Let me double check which one that is. So that level 4 actually. So I try to do a little bit of smoothing there, so that helps me and makes it a little bit easier. It's not that pretty yet, but it will be better. Okay. So with this, I have a rough opening for the eye. I just want to go back to my front view to see if I'm still in the same shape. I lost some detail there, so I'm going to try to do a little bit of sculpting there. Remember, we said that the eye, I want it to be a little bit more open. So I can do a good edge back in my for that eyelid when I need to close it. I'll do those a little bit. That last one kind of destroyed it a little bit there. Okay, so I'm gonna just stop there, that one for now, and I'm gonna continue my next segment.